Okay, awesome. All right, connecting. Okay. Hi, Noam, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. It's Noam, right? Is
Yeah.
that okay, I should have asked you that before we went live, but it's so good to see you. And I'm so excited to talk about SULAM. I thought we could talk about, you know, before we get into the film, I just thought it was really interesting, your work with documentary, and then I don't know if you're doing exclusive narrative work now, but can you kind of talk about like that journey decision to go in a narrative direction?
Yeah, I started doing documentary, and gosh, now I'm like, what year was it? I think it was like 20. We lost 3 years on the pandemic. So
Right. Yeah.
I think it was like around 2016. And I just sort of like fell into it in different ways. Like I had gotten a grant with National Geographic and I became a Nat Geo Explorer. So I did some work for them. And then I started doing kind of like what we call like outdoor adventure filmmaking. So like ski films, climbing films, like mountaineering.
Awesome.
Yeah, in like different places, and like a lot of like branded stuff, but also just independent stuff. And I did work for like North Face and some Google stuff and like Patagonia.
Wow.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, it was like a really good time. Yeti, yeah. And so that was really, really fun. And I was traveling a bunch. And then I did this independent documentary in Kyrgyzstan. That was sort of like this big independent project that I wanted to do that I co-directed with Alex Pritz, who did The Territory last year at that.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah. So we met doing that. And with another amazing DP whose name is Jack Weissman, and he did Nuisance Bear, if you saw that last year too. So they're crushing it.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So I did that and I loved it. And I think just like a couple things came together where like I was always like writing growing up as a kid, and I like wanted to do more of that. And then I had this mentor in the Bay Area when I was living there, Michelle Sileo, and she's a producer. And I would like meet with her, and I was always like, oh, I have this idea for like a movie about a talking uterus, just things that like weren't documentary.
That's amazing.
And she was like, just try writing it, and I had never like touched a screenwriting software in my life. And I like wrote the first thing in like Microsoft Word, and then someone was like, there's like this thing called Final Draft.
Final Draft, yeah, which it can be very intimidating if you're not used to using it. So
yeah, so then I ended up having to like rewrite my script in Final Draft, just things like that, like very kind of like how I got into documentary. Like I had the same approach for narrative where you just like go and do it and like you shoot and like figure it out. And so that's sort of how I got into writing. And I was like, oh, I love it. Like I really, really loved it. And I felt like it gave me, I still love documentaries, but I think with narrative, there's just like, for me, it's like the freedom to explore like smaller stories. And I think with documentary, it's just like in terms of what's in demand, like celebrity things are really popular, like big social issue things are really popular. And I always found myself drawn to the documentaries that were like these really intimate stories about regular people, and there's still like amazing documentaries like that coming out every year. But I think with narrative, it's just a bit easier to tell those like really small stories. And so I think that's kind of why.
I love your narrative work. It's so unique. And I do want to talk about what brought you to this project and why you decided to go a personal route. But I got this quote from your bio, and this will probably lead into your talking about SULAM, but overall, Noam's films tend to center on unlikely and faulty heroes who defy stereotypes, examining identity and relationships with a touch of dark humor and a lot of heart. So I don't know if you want to comment on that, like the reason why you're drawn to those type of characters, which I so appreciate, because I feel like there's not enough of that. So can you talk about a little bit why you're kind of drawn to those type of stories and characters?
Yeah, I think I just like the people, I just like, I feel really flawed, I guess, as a human.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, me as well. Yeah.
And so I'm like I'm drawn to that. And I feel like it's, as you're writing, it's more fun to like explore these like really messy relationships. And like, I think for me, what's fun as a writer is to like, for lack of a better word, to like dig into my own flaws and be like, well, what if she said this? It's like, that's toxic, but
I mean, your characters are human, so you gotta put, they're fully formed, and that's what I love. And I love how you play like so differently with genre. Like, Let Me Assist You, the film you submitted last year to the Cinema Femme Short Film Fest, totally different than SULAM. So I guess my next question is, what brought you to SULAM and what made you decide to tell such a personal story this time?
Yeah, so I'm in the grad program at NYU at Tisch. And so I think like and that was kind of like, I decided to go to explore more narrative. And my whole thing coming in was like, I don't really know. And this was now 3 years ago, but I was like, I don't really know what genre I want to do. And so basically every film that I've made at Tisch was just a different exploration of something, where I was like, oh, can I do a thriller? Can I do a sci-fi rom-com? Can I do a like mother-daughter drama? And so I think just in trying to find my like voice and the things that interest me, and I think now I'm kind of like, I'm finally like finding that tone, and it is somewhere in between. But it just came from like, I had never done like a drama, like a proper, like drama. And so I was like, I really want to do that to make sure I can do it. and so far so good.
No, I love it. And I love this story, and it's personal, right? Like it's kind of reflecting your relationship with your mother and being an immigrant. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I really wanted, I mean, NYU sort of encourages us to like dig into like our personal stuff, which is really, really interesting, and like creates this like bonding between the class, because like everyone's script is like, oh gosh, but so I wanted to lean into that for this one, and I really had never done something so personal before, ever, so I wanted to try that as a sort of exercise for myself. And a lot of it was, and I've spoken about this, I think, to you guys before, but just a lot of it was, I was kind of interested in re-examining my childhood, but from the lens of like what it would be like to empathize more with my mom. And and that's kind of where this idea for like a sort of dual protagonist came from. And this kind of story where like, tension and relationship are really at the heart, and like perspective and who you're rooting for is being like passed off from character to character. And I think going back to what we said earlier, like that's the stuff that I'm really interested in, like kind of like everyone's flawed and everyone's right and everyone's wrong. And I think that's sort of the realization that I've come to as an adult with like, wow, some of the things that I remember from my childhood must have been 10 times harder for my parents. So it's like, I think I really wanted to dig into that, and to really like, just from an artistic perspective, like feel and empathize with them more than I had before.
I love that. And I want to talk about how you found your two stars. I want to make sure I say their names right too. So the young girl, Oria
El-Grabli, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then more Cohen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So can you talk about how you found them for these parts? Because they were perfect.
Yeah, it was awesome. So I worked with a casting director. I don't think I could have done it without a casting director. And I worked with Charlene Lee, and then she brought on Danny Gordon, and he's another up and coming casting director, and he really spearheaded the search for them. And so it was kind of a traditional casting process. There just weren't that many options, which you would think it's oh, there's Israelis everywhere, but but it's at least that's how it feels in New York.
Right. Yeah.
But it was kind of this very specific thing where they had to be right for the role. They had to look similar enough. And also there's different types of Israelis. So that was something I was really cognizant of. And what type of Israeli immigrant would be this family, and what do they look like, what demographic they fit into, which is getting way too into ethnic and socio demographic politics in Israel. But that was something that as an Israeli, I was really cognizant of and wanted to think about. And then also I needed a kid who could act and was also first gen.
So good.
Yeah, she's great. But I think a lot of it was just, really good casting, and then a lot of rehearsal with them and getting them to connect on that level.
Yeah, I love that. And your film, and I feel like there's been some other films out lately that have to do, or the directors are immigrants, and then they tell kind of their stories and their experiences in different ways. I actually, yesterday, I just watched a film that was at Tribeca called Mountains. And it's directed by this Haitian American and her immigrant. I don't know if it's her immigrant family, but it's a narrative film that tells the story of this immigrant family in Miami, Florida, which is funny because yours is Central Florida and it's Miami.
Amazing.
And I so appreciate these stories because it shows us that, hey, America is made up of all these different kind of people and all these different type of stories and authentic stories, and it's just so refreshing. And maybe it's because I watch a lot of independent film, but I feel like the things seem to be changing a little bit on screen in terms of who's behind the camera and the stories that are on screen. I mean, in terms of the story you're telling, and what I'm seeing, what are your thoughts, I guess, about, these immigrant films coming?
I think it's exciting because I think for a while it's easy, and I can't speak for other groups, but I think just speaking for my experience, it's easy to get trapped into the trauma porn, poverty porn stuff, and to go really dark, and that definitely I think those films are really important. But also it's from talking to my friends who've had similar experiences, it's really hard on us, and I don't know that that's a healthy filmmaking process necessarily. And and it's also those aren't the only stories that we have to tell.
Of course. Yeah, right.
That was something I was super cognizant of with this piece, because I really wanted it to be within the family unit. That was something, it would have been so easy to do oh, racism, or oh, people make fun of them or don't accept them or whatever. And it was so important for me for the crux of the conflict to be really between them. And that
and it's universal. That's the thing, watching a film like this, I could relate to the young girl, because I remember when I was in middle school. I was so embarrassed by my mom. I was like, just drop me off. I'm gonna run to school, and then I felt like it was just like her, like, oh my God, even though I'm not an immigrant, but I felt like my relationship with my mother was kind of similar in a way.
Yeah.
And I love how, like, when you tell a personal story, you can really connect with it, even though you have totally different backgrounds. Can you talk a little bit about, capturing that personal experience and, that hardware store, just that whole thing,
Yeah. So like, I think I've said this to you before, but I'll just, maybe I'm repeating myself, so I'm sorry.
Yeah,
But
no, keep going. Yeah. This is new interview. So
yeah, okay. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I went a little like crazy on like how self-reflexive I wanted it to be. So we like in my hometown on location, we like shot in the Ace Hardware that I grew up going to in Apopka, Florida. Yeah, which was like, we didn't know if we were gonna get it, but like thank God they let us shoot there. But I found an apartment complex that was really similar to the one that I kind of like lived in growing up. And so and like we put the art on the walls in the apartment is like the same art that like we had when we like immigrated to the US. Like thrift store stuff that my parents quickly bought, and just like so it was really bizarre because like I feel like how we set decked the house, and my production designer Haley Rosenbluth was like amazing because we really worked on like, she kind of made it look like my apartment growing up.
It must have been so surreal, like what?
Well, for my parents, because they like walked into set and saw it and they were like, it was I don't, back to things that are unhealthy, I don't recommend ever doing that.
Yeah.
Because it was a little like, wow, that's a lot. But yeah, I was sort of into doing that, this like memory making and remaking. And sort of like, I think the film did end up being like quite healing, like for me and for my family, like watching it back, and like very reflective. And so I think I wanted to go there in production design and in location, and in wardrobe, and then like in all aspects of it, to kind of like do that. But again, like it's kind of an intense process.
But I appreciate that, you can tell it's personal, you could tell it's like a real story, and I connect with that. Like I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but I can tell when things aren't really authentic, like when people are just kind of lazy about stuff, or they're just like whatever, and I do appreciate those small details. And I actually want to talk to you about your behind the scene team. So you mentioned your production designer, also your producer, Beth. Yeah, and then your cinematographer, Ella Jenny. Can you talk about working with them and how they came into the project?
Yeah, so Betsy L and I like really I produced her film at NYU and she produced mine, and we really connected because she's first gen, and she's the daughter of Ethiopian and Eritrean immigrants, grew up in Texas. And so like, and she was really the one, like I was going to do kind of a different film. And one day we were sitting on her bed and I was telling her, and we were just talking about like experiences of immigrating. The other short that I was thinking of had elements of immigration in it too. And I told her this story about my mom not being able to say ladder. And other stories of me just like basically like running away and refusing to translate for her, and just like, wow, I can't believe I did that. And she was like, that you should make that, so so I really like, this movie wouldn't exist without her for so many reasons. Like with all producers, the movie wouldn't exist without them, but specifically she really encouraged me to tell this story. And I think like we really connected. She really understood like so many elements of it because of that, and was so good at giving like script notes, and she was just like an amazing partner for
That's awesome.
it was like the best working experience, truly. And like and a lot of our crew was like we had quite a bit of like first gen or like immigrants on our crew in general, which was exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, I love
So I think
that.
yeah, and then Ella, my DP, Ella Gibney, she's awesome. I worked with her on Let Me Assist You, and so we were like, let's go. But she was really into, Let Me Assist You. My previous film was very like locked off, and it was like kind of like more like a shot progression style and very like specific framing. And for this, we were going handheld. So I think that was really fun.
Yeah.
And she operated the whole time. God bless her heart. In the Florida
sun. That is great. Female cinematographers, like I love it. I love it. I love seeing, the women, cameras look so heavy, and I feel like I'm not trying to make a comment, like, but I'm just saying, like, it just is like, yay, women, power.
No, for sure. And she's such a beast, for lack of a better word. Like she's she's a real like team player in every sense.
I love that. Yeah. That's so cool. And then a question I ask a lot, what do you hope people see in this film?
That's a good question. I think, what do I hope people see? I mean, I think a lot of like, I've screened it a couple of times now, with you guys too. And like, I do get a lot of kind of like what you said, which is like, I get a lot of like kids who are like immigrants or like first gen coming up to me and saying, now as adults, and coming up to me and just like, some people cry, which is like, oh my God, like
it's emotional.
Yeah.
That relationship between a mother and a daughter is so, it's so complex, and it's so raw in the emotions, like, and you nailed it. You nailed like that complexity, like, especially, I don't know if this is a spoiler. I don't think it's a spoiler. So, but I'm not going to lay it out specific, but that end when they're in the car together, it's so beautiful. And that's like a mother-daughter relationship. And
and I think like this kind of feeling that like when you have to, whether you are an immigrant or not, like your family is your family to an extent, and like there's this, especially though when you're an immigrant and you're like the only two people that you really are like connected to in the whole country, like there's this sense of like you have to rely on each other, and so I think that is like something that I hope people get out of it. But really what excites me is like that people have this like emotional reaction and personal connection to it. And I think, going back to what you said earlier about immigrant stories in general, I think we just want to be seen as also human. And it's like, it's not, it's like, which is such a silly thing to say, but I think our experiences are just another way of talking about other universal experiences and kind of exploring like we go through the same things that other people go through, just in different ways, and like our struggles are different, but it's they're just like human stories. And I think it's like having people who haven't had an immigrant experience relate to the film is like the greatest blessing to me as well, because I'm like, wow, cool. It's like, it really, I feel like that's like filmmaking, right? It's like, we did it.
There's a power there. And I always give the example of Moonlight by Barry Jenkins, because I am like complete opposite. Like I'm a straight white woman, and that's a story about a Black gay man and in a totally different part of the country that I'm not familiar with. And it's one of my favorite films, and I feel for that character so much. And it's just, that is the power of film, and
I think that's like what's really exciting. It's like we've known that that's the power of film when it's like Superman or like a fairy godmother or something. And it's like, I'm really happy that in the industry we're like coming to realize that that's the power of film also like across like ethnicity and nationality and things like that. Because I think it's like our stories are not just for like people within our community, like they really can be universal, which is really exciting.
This film is so great. And I do want to hear about your future projects or things that you're working on, but I also want, can you tell people about, when this film is playing at the Palm Springs Fest and, how people can see it and all that. So
yes. So next up we're going to Palm Springs, which is, I'm so excited about that.
So exciting. That's such a good festival. Yeah,
I wanted to screen there for so long. I'm like, they took me finally. I'm like,
well deserved. Such a good film. Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that. That's been like a really big thing that I've like wanted for a while. And so it's playing Saturday, June 24th.
Next weekend, right?
Yes, next weekend at 2:30 p.m. I think. I should look. I can't find it. I think it's 2:30. Yeah, Pacific Standard Time.
Right. And that's going to be so beautiful. I don't even know if I've been to Palm Springs, but I've been around there and it's a beautiful area. So
I've never been for like, let's say professional reasons.
Of course. Yeah. And that's your Joshua Tree, is it?
Yeah, it's near Joshua Tree. Yeah.
Yeah, which I haven't been to, but I'd love to
awesome.
go. Yeah. And then can you talk about, I guess, anything you'd like to talk about that you're working on or that you can talk about?
I know, I'm like I'm like, what should I say? So I have one more short in me, whether I want to or not, because that's for my thesis.
Oh yeah. Okay. And you graduate next year, right?
Yeah. So I'm starting my thesis here. So I've got one more short that I'm doing. And I think I can say what it's about. It's about a girl with long curly hair. Crazy. I don't know where I got that idea from. And she starts trading secret glimpses of her hair in exchange for like with boys in school. And it's sort of a game, but it ends up kind of devolving. So
interesting. So is it a kid? Like
it's a kid,
girl?
yeah. She's like 10 or 11. Yeah.
Oh my God. That's great.
Yeah. So it's pretty dark, but it's a little funny. I always have a little funny stuff.
I mean, if it, I don't know if you could submit it to our festival next year, but that would be awesome.
Yeah, if I can get it done in time, I'll do it.
Dude, I feel like we'll have to have a retrospective soon of your work. I love it. I love it. Like I can see your journey through these films, and in terms of embracing and finding your voice, like I feel like you found it, or at least that's what I see.
Oh, that's so nice of you.
And you have such a unique and like amazing voice in film. So you're one of the filmmakers that I'm just so excited about. And, I was so happy to award you with that mentorship because like there's just a lot of great buzz about this film and I loved it as well. So I'm just so excited.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. And I'm like, I think I'm also figuring out that like in between like drama and like some of the like dark comedy stuff that I like doing and the comedy stuff. So hopefully now, like, as I go into like feature and TV land next, it like, I feel good about it.
That's so great. I just get so energized for this, but I guess that's it for this interview. And it's been a real pleasure. I'm so glad we could do something one-on-one. And I wish I could be at the festival too, but for those are they doing online as well?
I don't think so. I think it's just in
Okay,
person.
just in person.
Yeah.
Okay, so people who are in the LA area should definitely go to the festival and check out the film. I will link where people can get tickets and all that. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
this is great. And thank you.
Thank you so much. This is awesome.
Yeah, I hope you have a good day.
Thanks.
Thanks, okay, we're good.
Okay.
We're